what's on second. I don't know who's on third.
That's what I want to find out, the guy's name. That's what I want to find out, the guy's name.
Who's on first? What's on second? I don't know who's on third.
But you going to be the manager of the baseball team?
Yes.
You know the guy's name?
Boy, sure.
Well, you tell me the guy's name on the baseball
I say, who's on first? What's on second? I don't know who's on third.
You ain't saying nothing to me yet. Go ahead and tell it.
Hello and welcome to the Scouting Baseball Podcast, now known as the Who's on First Scouting Baseball Podcast with Taylor Blake Ward of Scout.com and Jeff Ellis of Scout.com. Jeff, how are you today?
Yeah, I'm doing well. It's a little scary how close the draft is, but it's also a little bit exciting.
Well, as much as I love your daughter, Tennyson, I'm really happy that she's taking a nap so we can get time to do this. We've been trying to schedule this between a new marriage and new baby. Really been just tough scheduling between the two of us, and also I've had issues with my phone, so that's my fault. But let's just jump right into this. Jeff, you've got a top 51 coming out. Why don't you tell us a little bit about it?
I go from 36 to 51 in this one. There's a lot of movement, just as I feel this is a draft where we'll get into some of the arm injuries and the like, but players are underperforming that we kind of had closer to the top. There's some guys who are jumping up, but there's a few names on there that I was telling you beforehand, I was a little disappointed. I felt like Kiley McDaniel scooped me on my own big board because, Kiley is quite in the know. I was very excited about being a stat guy, Grant Little, and what he's done at Texas Tech, and Kyle Isbell from UNLV, who he had been farther back on some lists, but Little in particular, I really hadn't seen anywhere. So, of course, while I'm taking forever to get out my articles, they both appeared on the Fangraphs list. So Kiley and Eric, I really enjoyed their lists. I know their top prospect list. They had quite a few guys. So I was like, I thought it was the high guy, but it turned out they were. So I just had to laugh at that. Those are two names to kind of look for on the list. Trying to think of anyone else. I'm really high on Joey Bart at this point. That might be a little surprising how high. I'm really gun shy about a lot of the prep arms. I had in my section on Ethan Hankins, I had what I thought was a very salient point on why we should all be a little afraid of them. That let's see, since 2012, and not counting last year, there have been 10 high school arms drafted. 8 of them are already considered busts. Someone like Cole Stewart, who has given up baseball, or have required surgery. So 10 arms, 8 have already busted or have needed arm surgery. So that's we're seeing a lot, and I'm officially one of those people who's a little bit afraid of sudden velocity jumps. Because even look at some of the names we'll get into this year, but the common line with all 3 is they throw hard, and they had kind of a jump at some point. But Jonathan India, I thought I was going to be the high man on, so much so I wrote into my piece, I'm pretty sure I'm the high man on him. And then I saw Keith put him higher than me even. So I think what's fun with this class right now is you could put my list next to your list, next to Keith's list, next to Baseball America, next to Kiley, next to PG. And we probably have, and next to 2080, we have like the same names over the top 100, but one place might have a guy at 20 that another group doesn't have till 70. I don't think you want to be picking like 4 through 8 this year. The top is not as strong, but Kansas City, Tampa, and Cleveland with having 3 picks in the teens and later, I think that's the sweet spot. Like I'd rather have the Royals picks than the Tigers. I'd rather have the Indians picks than say the White Sox. And comes down to it, I think it's going to be what's really interesting is my background as an Indians writer, and I have a lot of connections with Detroit as well. It's just you look at Kansas City, Detroit, and Cleveland, and just the White Sox with the high pick. I mean, those are like 4 of, you could argue, the top 8 teams for this draft of impact. So it's going to be an interesting draft, and it's like, for me, it's the organizations I know the best. So that's going to be fun to see if I can figure out what they're thinking.
Yeah, and like you said, to me, this is the Royals, maybe one of the cornerstones of their franchise moving forward is this draft. I mean, I think they have 4 picks inside the top 50. It's 5 or 6 picks in the top 100. And with a draft that goes this deep, heck, you even hit the mark on half of the picks you make in the top 100, and you have yourself 3 impact players somehow. Yeah, this is a very, very interesting draft for a lot of teams. And Jeff, you brought something up when it comes to prospect rankings here. Obviously, prospect rankings are more for the fans, and for us, the analysts, it's to garner or give information out to you guys. But you brought up that someone might have someone at a 20, and someone else might have them in the 70s. We have a lot of polarizing players in this draft. We were talking about it before we came on. I think the primary polarizing guy of this draft has been the same guy since day one, when he was, widely regarded as maybe the most talented guy in this draft, and that's Brady Singer out of the University of Florida, the starter for Florida. Jeff, you and I have gone back and forth on Brady Singer. I'm a bit higher on him than you are, but both of us are on the low end when it comes to Brady Singer. Why is it for you that maybe Brady just isn't making the cut for you?
You could start with his age. He is kind of an older. He's got that unfortunate birthday where he wasn't draft eligible as a sophomore, but he's going to be viewed as old for his age as a junior. And as we've seen, like more and more, it's like the number one indicator stat above and beyond anything else is age relative to level. There's a lot of great statistics out there, but when you find those guys excelling at a young age, that tends to give you your best judge of talent. So his age is going to throw some people. The mechanics are not ideal. And I think this year, what has pulled everyone else off of him, he was never a top 10 guy to me. I never thought, and this isn't me hating on Florida. I had Alex Faedo in my top 5 all of last year. I had AJ Puck as a top 3 prospect. I just think Singer is a little overrated, and his inconsistency. He's always been inconsistent with his velocity and just his stuff. Like one game, he'll look like a 5th round pick, and another game, he looks like he should go 1-1. And that inconsistency in a draft that has this many pitching options, if you're, let's say you're the Phillies at 3, and you decide, okay, we're going to take a Bohm or Madrigal or a Bart or a Swaggerty. In round 2, you could very easily be looking at someone like Connor Pilkington, who maybe doesn't have the upside, but if you wanted to go college again, there's going to be someone who's there, Colton Eastman, someone like that. Whereas if you're looking at that college bat, is it someone like Luken Baker, who has never really hit for power the way he's thought and has had an injury issue this year? The drop off from bats to arms is so great that if you're a team picking early, I don't think you can even afford to consider Singer with his inconsistencies.
Yeah, and that's a similar way that I look at it. I'm one of those that really ignores age. I've never looked at age as a very valuable factor, but that's just me personally. And I know that teams do. Obviously, the Indians are very keyed in on age. But for me with Singer, it's the delivery. And it's not that it's something that is taken away from him, because obviously he's got that low arm slot that really helps out his breaking ball. And he's a little bit deceptive, but you're going to have to really work a new delivery for him. And is that worth taking a 1st-round pick for? Is it worth going out and saying, we have to turn you into something that you're not? And we like you. We love your stuff. We think you're a very good pitcher, but we have to change you. And I just don't see a team that's going to – I know that a team is going to do it in the 1st round. That someone is going to take them in probably the first 25 picks. But I just don't see how you could – work a project as a 1st-round pick. The velocity thing, that's kind of a Florida thing for me. Alex Faedo went through it. Brady Singer's gone through it. But yeah, SEC arm that is competing well in the SEC, showing well in the SEC. Every check, you check the box and everything works out for me. But once you get to that delivery, I'm really nervous about it. Jeff, you brought up another Florida arm that's a little bit polarizing in Jackson Cowart. I believe that's who you were talking to about earlier, correct?
Yes.
And For me, just I'll start out with Jackson.
Okay.
Jeff, you can jump in whenever you want. For me, it's performance, and it's not that he's going out and performing poorly. I think he's performed very well, but just the thing for me is he's always going out giving 6 innings, allowing 3 runs, walking 2, and striking out 5. And that is pretty much, you look across every box score that he does, that's what he's going to do. As for the stuff is great. It's going to play up in pro ball. But for the time being, I just don't see the performance that I want to see from a first rounder. And then it's not to take away from Cowher, because Cowher is first round talent wise, but performance wise, and you know me just as much as anything, Jeff. Performance has never been on my plate. Never been something I've really wanted to pay attention to, and I try to ignore and stick with regular scouting. But that's the big knock for me and Jackson Cowher. How about yourself?
You know, he's one of those guys heading in where he had some top 10 talk, and I mean, I think pure stuff and ceiling, he's probably the better prospect between Singer and Koa and Cowher. But you know, I think Singer has a good chance to be an excellent reliever, back end starter. So I have him a little higher because of safety and because performance. But it just gets down to with Cowher that his numbers are okay, but he has nothing I look at and I'm like, oh, that's good. Like, his home run rate is okay. His hit rate is okay. His walk rate is okay. His strikeout rate is okay. It's always a red flag to me because even in the SEC, which is the top conference, you're going to face maybe half a lineup is going to even be drafted, if that. And this is the top conference by pretty significant margin right now in the game. And you should be, when your stuff is that good, you should be able to do better. This is the same argument I had to a degree a few years ago when everybody loved Jeff Hoffman. Everyone couldn't get over how good his stuff was. And I just plain and simply said, I don't care how good his stuff is. He's facing lower level competition and he's doing okay. When your stuff is that good, you should be able to perform. And that, for me, that is, of course, a huge red flag. I mean, he's totally a guy that could make me look foolish in a few years, but he's a classic, like, your guy. Like, I'm not going to draft him. You take him because I know you're going to take him higher than I ever would. And you'll push someone down the board that maybe I'm higher on. But, yeah, for me, he's just another one where I need to see something. If I'm drafting a guy early, I want excellence. And I have not seen excellence.
Yeah, and I'm the same. And it's not to say that he's not going to be a good professional baseball player, but like you said, you expect excellence out of your first-round talents, and the performance just hasn't been there. Moving from the SEC to the ACC, Joey Bart, obviously the talk of the town. If I had a first-round pick, and it doesn't matter where it is in the first round, I think I would take Joey Bart. But there are two polarizing guys out there. Jeff, I believe you're the higher man than I am on Griffin Roberts of Wake Forest. Is that an accurate estimate?
I have him in my top 51. Does that have him higher than you?
That's around, yeah, you do.
Jeff,
what do you think of Griffin Roberts? And then I'll share my take, and I think we'll find a way to kind of itemize how we are polarizing these players.
For me, you know, he's this reliever turned starter this year, and the performance. You know, I think I would probably argue the ACC is our number 2 college conference, with the Pac-10 coming in third. So he's facing, you know, good talent, and he's still, you know, he's been excellent. Huge high strikeout rates, his walks, which were a problem. I want to check this, but I'm pretty sure he is walking less hitters per 9 as a starter than he was as a reliever, which is unusual. Yeah, his walk rate last year was over 5. This year it was almost 5.5. This year it's a little over 3. He's punching out over 12 guys per start, you know, per 9. So it's a good walk rate. I consider like below 3 when we kind of hit that great range. So he's the cusp of a great walk rate with a great strikeout rate. And then you go back and you look at the performance in the Cape as a starter. He was excellent over the summer. So he's got great summer stats. He's been really, really strong this year. And, he's got the slider, which you can put up there as probably one of the best in this class, maybe the best. I think it is a real plus pitch. The fastball is probably more average to above average. It's a low 90s one. And then the change needs some work. I am high on him because of performance, because I see the pitch mix to at least be a reliever. And I think he's got kind of, I don't know if I want to get more and more like the giving someone a 3 ceiling feels kind of cheap. It's like a 2-3 or a 3-4. I mean, I think Roberts is kind of more of a back end guy, but I think especially with the improvement we've seen in his control, he's one of those guys that try him in the rotation. If the changeup doesn't come, you can just immediately slot him into your pen, and he's going to be a guy who pitches for a while. Benching all the statistics, it has to be brought up that he's a Wake Forest pitcher. Look at the performances by Wake hitters and anyone in that stadium the last few years. That's not a good environment for pitchers. So he's pitching in a hostile environment and doing quite well.
And see, I'm on a different level. I really, really like Griffin Roberts as a reliever. So I really wouldn't touch him until the 3rd or 4th round even. Fastball velocity is kind of more low 90s than it is mid 90s. And the changeup is progressing, but if I'm going to see a guy that's in the low 90s, I want him in maximum capacity with the velocity. The slider is a plus pitch. It's a very good slider. But I am just not sold that he is a starter. So I'm not going to be taking him in the 1st or 2nd round. I'm at least going to wait until the 3rd, which he probably won't be around. Like we said, you saw him as almost a mid-rotation arm, and I saw him as a premier reliever. So a very different guy. Sticking with the ACC, Clemson has a guy there, Jeff. You may have heard of him. His name is Seth Beer.
I think I heard the name once or twice.
Yeah, he's been around the block for a while. Seth Beer, an incredible power bat. When the bat speed is present, one of the most dangerous hitters in college, has shown that the power is true this season. He's kind of had power every year, but he is a first base only player that you might only have a chance to DH when in the long run. Not sure he's athletic enough to stay at first base long term at the pro level. Jeff, I am a fan of the bat. I am a little worrisome on the contact, but I still believe that I would take him on that first day. Where do you stand when it comes to Seth Beer?
He's one of those guys I'm still debating if I'm going to move him into him and Nander DeSantis for DeSantis for that last spot on my list. I've got 2 more days before I have to officially post the back end of the list, so it gives me some time. Beer started out absolutely atrocious. He was skunky, if I can make a bad joke. But since then, he's really turned it around. His walk rate isn't quite as good as a year ago. His power numbers aren't quite as good. But his strikeouts are down. But he's always been a guy who walked at just an absurd rate. And that he's going to be this performance to, you talked about the bat speed, and there's always that concern with him that it's just a bit slow, that he's going to get in the minors and it's not going to work for him, that he's not going to be able to progress enough to turn into something. I think plate discipline, you'd have to grade him as the best hitter in this class in terms of that eye at the plate, just looking at what he's done. He also finds ways to get on base. He's one of those guys who gets plunked a lot, and through the years we've learned that hit by pitch is almost a direct correlation. That if you get hit by a lot of pitches in college or the minors, you will in the majors. I feel like Brandon Geyer is, of course, the big example of that. But yeah, do you think he can make enough contact to use his power, or is this going to be a Sam Horn to really go back in it, or someone like that, where once he gets to the big leagues, it's just he's not going to be able to tap into the power? So I'm just, first base only prospects in and of themselves are such limited value. And then I just, and as a player who every single year has been worse in college, his performance has gone down every year. It's just a sign of that in and of itself also scares me. It's like, teams are figuring him out. You're supposed to get better, not worse. So, I'd love to see him do well. I think that if he can make it to the majors, he's just by last name alone a very marketable guy, and frankly, baseball needs that. I mean, they're struggling to market Mike Trout. He's there's so many cool things and ways to do it, but I guess I don't know if I'm low, if I'm with most people. I don't know where what the typical range on Beer is anymore.
I think it's like we've brought up. It's a polarizing player. So you're either you either have him in the top 30 or you have him on maybe your top 60, and some just don't even have him. Jeff, there's another college guy that I've liked in and out, and you kind of talked me out of him, and then I kind of got on your case about it, and now it's kind of backfiring a little bit. But I'm still a fan of Shane McClanahan. You have your reasons, I have mine. A lefty that throws 100. Those don't grow on trees. You're not going to get a lot of them. Is he worth the top 5 pick? I believe he is. I believe that everything there is a special breed. But obviously control is a serious concern. The same was said about you brought up Jeff Hoffman. You brought up we'll bring up Sean Newcomb of the Braves, just recent draftees that have this. But I'm still sold. I believe that if he gets picked up by Chicago, which it doesn't sound like he will now, but anyone that is good at developing arms and finding a way to control the arm and get him in the strike zone, this is a special, special arm that I think is unmatched in this draft. Jeff, you have a very differential opinion.
Yeah, McClanahan was a guy actually when I started my big board, because it is a process. It ends up being like 10, 11 pages in Google Docs, and I'm all said and done with this. He was actually number 2, and then I started filling in what I have on them, and as it went on, it's like this last week he had a good start. Before then, he had only had one good start, one quality start in the last month, and the control which had been there, which was kind of my big concern, had gone away. He still is walking more guys than I'd like to see. He's not lasting deep into games. He's undersized. There's a history of arm issues. His issues with control. Yet in spite of all of that, this is a kid who had top 5 talk, which speaks to just how good this stuff is. That one, I think, could make an honest case that, in terms of just pure stuff, is right up there with anyone in the class. But at this point, he's another guy where I'm like, you can have him. There's just too many concerns. Yes, if it works out, it's going to be a fantastic get. This could be, it reminds me a little bit of, was it like 2010 with Chris Sale? Now, he's not Chris Sale. Chris Sale had better performances, but Chris Sale was a small school guy who there was issues with his mechanics. There was a lot of concerns there, and he ended up sliding into the teens, even though for most of the time, he was right up there with Drew Pomeranz, who the Indians took at like 4, I want to say, or maybe 5. And, maybe McClanahan proves me wrong. He has that stuff to be that type of guy. But there's just too many reasons for me to not draft him. And there's more reasons to not draft. If I make like a list and I'm like, okay, velocity, and you put size on the other side, and you put injury-ish. And if I just cross off on a 1-to-1, I'm going to have more things on the negative side than the positive. And this isn't to knock the kid. I mean, honestly, like I said, just like 2 weeks ago, I was ready to make him the number 2 player in this class. But then you do your deep diving and things start moving around, and that's kind of where I am with him.
Yeah, and I think that's the debate is, do you believe that the stuff is going to be able to be thrown for strikes, and is his arm going to hold up? I'm a believer. I'm a firm believer in Shane McClanahan. I would actually look at him as right behind Casey Mike. And the way I look at it. Jeff, our last guy that we're going to talk about is a polarizing name, a guy that popped up during NHSI, really a different and unique kind of guy, two-sport guy who actually, I think that any bonus that we're going to be talking about for this kid is going to have to really take him away from college football, and that's Jordan Adams. Jeff, what is your take on Jordan Adams? Because I'm a big fan. Up the middle athlete, supreme athlete who's showing a great feel to hit. I'm all in on the kid. If you wanted to use a late first-round pick on him, I'm all for it. Early second, it's how much is that bonus going to take you out of it?
Yeah, it's I think Kansas City is kind of like a team in an ideal position maybe with all of their picks. I don't have him in my current big board because I don't know. Same reason like I won't have Kyler Murray from from Oklahoma in there. Like I don't really think I'm 100% sure that Murray's not signing. I think he wants to go and be Oklahoma's quarterback next year. I think Adams likely goes to school. Like he put on a performance, but he's going to have the ability to perform and show each way. And I feel that he's probably a bigger, even with us talking about him as a potential first-round pick right now, I feel like he's still a bigger name as a football recruit than a baseball player. And at this point, there is the limited track record. And there is, just how there is some rawness. And I know he did really well at the NHSI, but I get leery just to get excited by athletic tools anymore or a good performance. I want to see more of a track record. So I think he's a great prospect. I think that he could be a wonderful pick for like KC, Tampa, even Cleveland, who have those multiple early picks. But if I was running a team, I would probably shy away. I am at this point with the draft and everything I've just spent over the years. I realize more and more I'm getting more conservative with it, and you can find really athletic players later who might be cheaper. They may not have the ceiling of Adams or the current ability of Adams. But if I'm going to take a lotto ticket, I don't know if I want to take a lotto ticket in round one that's that raw.
Now, here's a quick question for you, Jeff. What has a better likelihood that Jordan Adams is drafted by the Kansas City Royals or that Jordan Adams is drafted by the Kansas City Chiefs?
He's a receiver, right? I want to say yeah. So he's a big-time receiver. This is what kind of comes down. I mean, I think no matter what, he's going to get drafted in both sports. It's going to be like a few years ago when I think it was Devin Smeltzer who was picked, or was it Wendell McGee who was with football and the Red Sox. So we see these kids, and I don't know Jordan as a person, obviously, because I don't spend a lot of time hanging out with high schoolers. I believe that could lead to prison time. But I'm kidding, people. But I don't know what his first. When I read about Kyle Murray, like I know football is that guy's first love. I know that's where his interest is. Even though I think his future is still baseball, I don't know where Adams' first love is, and that's what I really have to get into. I'm sure he'll say all the right things because, I mean, who doesn't want to get a few $1 million and then always keep football in the back pocket? Football is totally a sport. Unlike baseball, you can back pocket football and always go back. We've had so many guys bomb out in the minors. The Brandon Whedons, the Josh Booties, the trying to think off the top of my head. Cole Stewart basically is doing that now. So if you go do baseball first, you can sometimes collect a $1.5 million contract, and if it doesn't work out, you can always go back to football. So I mean, you're always going to say the right things because if someone offers you, $1 or $2 million, that's going to be hard to say no matter what. But for me, I have to find out what his first love is, if that's known. But I'm sure he'll say all the right things, and I think there's probably a better likelihood of baseball right now because I think someone's going to offer him all that money, and I think it's going to be hard to say no. And then, like I said, it's not like he's going to get slower. It's not like he's going to get smaller. He's he's a pretty built kid to begin with. So he can go, and if baseball doesn't work out, with Cole Stewart quit this year after 4 years in the minors.
I think Cole's actually. I'm looking
back?
it up. I think he's still pitching.
For some reason I thought, or maybe he enrolled in football too this year. Maybe he quit. He's sticking with it. Okay, so maybe that's it. But he's shifted his focus to a degree, and the Twins are okay with him. Doing.
He's got 12 innings in Double-A right now.
Yeah. So I was wrong, but
they haven't been pretty, but he has 12 innings.
Oh, okay. So I found the story. Originally, it had been reported that he was going to in the beginning of January, and then he came out in a phone interview and said that's not happening. So he even addressed the rumor. So I'm sorry, I never saw the follow back to it.
That's all right. And just to shorten it a little, when a football player comes back to play baseball, it turns into a laughing show. Obviously, Tim Tebow is not the basis that you really want to put this on. That's not the basis you want to go on. But how about Russell Wilson, Super Bowl winning quarterback that was also a 3rd or 4th round draft pick, goes out to spring training, and it's a sideshow. And it's not to say that Russell Wilson isn't a good baseball player. I mean, he's shown the talents, and I think that he could have had a good chance to be a utility man. But like you said, Jeff, football is more of a fallback. Football is more of a passion thing. When you look at football as a career, you're putting your life at risk. When you're choosing baseball as a career, you're chasing a dream. So both have the negatives and the positives. But yeah, this kid is going to be – he's going to be a very interesting follow on draft day to see what his decision is. If he doesn't go on that first day, you can almost assume that he's going to be setting foot at North Carolina as a football player. Jeff, we brought it up before we went on. Just a few arm injuries. How about you touch on it? Because I don't know the exact details. I just saw the Mike Vasil comment the other day. Ethan Hankins back to pitching, but question marks. And Mason Denneberg with the bicep injury. Why don't you touch on those guys a little bit, and anyone else that you've seen that has a serious arm injury?
Yeah, it's it's one of those things where, especially, I mean, in college and with the prep kids, we get these reports, and we never quite know how truthful they are. Where they get reported as one thing and then it turns out being something else. Hankins, Denneberg, and Vasley were all guys who have had, to varying degrees, top 10 talk. They've all been shut down with twinges or forearm or bicep issues. And Hankins, I have to question why, after his return from injury, his coach sends him out to throw in a rainstorm. I understand getting the kid reps and getting him used to it, but maybe like a different environment. Wait till it's not downpouring. And Hankins has gone from 1 to like the 30s. Like, I mean, his stock, it's not just us. It is everyone putting him down there. I think he is going to Vanderbilt. I don't think Hankins is going to sign. I had to, we sit and we wait. It's that way with Vasley and Denneberg. We'll sit and wait till we get information or until they perform, and you see how the performance goes. They're not the only guys. Steve Gingery, I don't even think he pitched for Texas Tech this year before he needed surgery.
I think he had maybe
once. Yeah.
It was short. I think he pitched before the season. Something. I know he threw this spring, but I don't know.
Yeah, Tim Kate didn't pitch last weekend because of injury, and they had already talked about moving him out of the rotation, and now he's missed multiple weeks. Originally, they're going to move him to the pen, and since that announcement, he hasn't pitched at all. Isaiah Campbell has had multiple misses after he missed all of last season with injury.
Tyler at Florida State.
Yeah, also requiring surgery. And I think what we're seeing, a few years ago, we saw like the Eric Fetties and the Lucas Giolitos and the Jeff Hoffmans. Like, oh, who cares? They weren't going to pitch this much this year. We'll just draft them. you're not hearing as much of that laissez-faire approach with arm injuries from teams. Like there's legitimate concerns, and especially if it's not diagnosed and taken care of yet. And there's points where you can talk to a team. Some teams worry that they're going to draft a kid and the kid's not going to take their recommendation, that he won't get surgery when the team thinks he will, or that he'll get surgery even though they'd like to see him wait. That sometimes players aren't willing to listen. I mean, it doesn't happen all the time, but it does happen. I don't know about any of these players. I don't know if any of them will require surgery outside of those who've already had it. But I feel like teams aren't willing to take that risk early on as much as they were just a few years ago. And I think when there's even the slightest bit of smoke, a team looks at it and goes, it's a deep draft. We have guys with similar evaluations. I do think, Basley's got that Virginia commit that can make it very easy for him to go to college. Denneberg, I believe, is Florida, so that's another very easy commit. And Hankins is Vanderbilt. So you're looking at like 3 really respected programs. And I would not be shocked if all 3 got drafted and signed. I would not be shocked if all 3 went to college.
Yeah, I'm in the same boat. And we do have some position player injuries. Obviously, Nick Madrigal, the obvious one. But he hasn't taken a fall by any means, just because everyone has a track record of what he's done. Luke Baker at TCU, tricky kind of deal. Anyone else, Jeff? I gotta get some water. My throat just swelled up.
Oh no, that's no problem. I'm going through and I'm trying to think of if there was anyone I was watching who's had that injury issue, and nobody really comes to mind at this point, which means, of course, I'm missing someone. I will say the nice thing is Nick Madrigal came back last weekend, and it looked like nothing had occurred, that he was just in his typical season form. He had facing rival Oregon and stepped right in and had a multi-hit game against Matt Mercer, who's a player with some first-round talk, likely still a second or third round pick. But yeah, it's the bats have stayed healthy, and I think that's why we're seeing the bats rise right now. There's an honest to goodness chance that the first 5 picks could all be college players. There's a good chance that I think we're probably going to see 4 college bats in the top 10. Who knows, maybe more, but we'll have to see. Right now, this draft is definitely, you believe all the early smoke, it's drifting a lot more conservative. It's drafting a lot more college, and it's kind of looking at guys with the track records that you can trust.
Yeah, and sorry about that, Jeff. I had cup of noodle just before this. I think the chicken flavoring got stuck in my throat. Out of nowhere, I couldn't talk. So
this podcast is brought to you by Cup of Noodle.
Absolutely.
You can contact Taylor or myself on where to send either the check or free samples.
Yeah, Maruchan Instant Lunch. Caution hot, do not microwave. Oh, well, there you go. That was my mistake. We like to have a little bit of fun. Jeff, this is something that I did not prepare you for. I just said that I'm going to play a game with you, but I didn't say what it was going to be. The game that we are going to do here is called Name That Person, or not Name That Person. That's a terrible name. It's brought to you by Instant Lunch by Maruchan. I'm going to give you a name, and you have to guess if it is a Southern California prep draft prospect, a current NASCAR driver, or an actor that portrayed did a sports film and was a main character in a sports film. So let me know when you're ready. I've got 3 prep players from Southern California, 3 actors, and 3 NASCAR drivers. And I know you're probably not a big NASCAR guy, so I'm going to take it off the top series. No NASCAR prospects.
I think this will be interesting, because I feel like my California knowledge isn't as good this year as in years past. I feel like it's not been as much of a crop. So I might look pretty bad. Let's go for it. Let's have some fun.
Okay, I will start with the easiest one. Chase Elliott.
Chase Elliott, is that what I hear?
Yep, that's correct.
Chase Elliott.
And don't Google it. That's cheating.
Let's see. I don't think that's an actor. I can't think of any baseball player. So is it a race car driver?
It is. It's actually just won Rookie of the Year not that long ago. Has yet to win a race, but his dad, Bill Elliott, is a Hall of Fame race car driver, and Chase has shown promise in his career. So good job. You're 1 for 1 here.
Okay.
All right, let's go with another easy one here. Chadwick Boseman.
Oh, it's the Black Panther.
Yeah. Hey, and Fonte Mack and Jackie Robinson.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. Okay. 2 for 2. Not a bad deal there, buddy. Okay. Let's go a little bit different. Eddie Cahill.
I immediately think about Trevor Cahill when I hear Eddie Cahill. And we haven't had it seems like a weak line, but I don't know. Is that maybe a relation to Trevor Cahill? Is that a baseball prospect? I don't know.
It is actually Tag Jones from Friends and Jim Craig and Miracle.
I own Miracle, and I've seen a lot of Friends, so I should have known that.
Well, it's not like he has a star name. All right, 2 for 3, batting. That's not a bad day at the plate. How about this? Osiris Johnson.
Oh, Toolsy prep player. Very toolsy.
Hey,
Tools for days.
Can you say where he's from?
I can't say where he's from. I just like my thought is he a shortstop?
He is.
Yeah, okay. I remember shortstop, lots of tools, young for the class.
Yeah.
I want to say. And
high school. Good job, man. Okay. Let's see here. Let's go with Chandler Champlin.
Chandler Champlin. This is probably where I'm going to look bad because inevitably I'm going to miss all the baseball players. I don't know. Is that a race car driver?
It is actually a pitcher from Rancho Santa Margarita down in Orange County. Lives in the Coto de Caza area, same as Griffin Canning. And works low 90s, but definitely a draft prospect, someone to watch. He is committed to, Southern California, USC. So 3 for 5.
Was it Champlin?
Champlin. Like Champlain.
Okay.
All right, so let's go with another one here. How about Austin Dillon?
Immediately start to make all of my connections in my head to other people named Dillon. We've had 2 baseball players, 1 race car driver, and an actor. We've had 2 actors, 2 baseball players. Well, then we're short a NASCAR driver, so let's guess that. Then everything's at 2s.
The defending Daytona 500 winner, Austin Dillon, driver of the number 3 Chevrolet. Not bad. He is actually the nephew of Richard Childress, who owned Dale Earnhardt's number 3 car. I'm sure you've heard of Dale Earnhardt, Jeff.
That's one I know. Yeah.
All right, there you go. All right, so let's go with another challenging one. How about Daniel Suarez?
Daniel Suarez.
I hear you typing. That's cheating. That's not fair.
Is this where it's bad? Where I'm like, well, Suarez, is that a pitcher? I don't know. I mean, I'm guessing pitcher, but I don't know why Suarez makes me think pitcher. That feels now vaguely racist. But yeah, I'm guessing baseball player.
He is actually a NASCAR driver, drives for Joe Gibbs, the number 19 Toyota. He was the first international champion across all of NASCAR's top 3 series. He won the 2016 Xfinity Series championship, which is like AAA NASCAR. He's from Mexico, the only Mexican-born driver in the series currently. All right, Jeff, let's go.
Yeah, I would never guess again, this might sound bad, but it's like NASCAR, I would never guess the Hispanic sounding name.
No, of course.
I have to be honest.
I had to challenge you with that one. I was either going to give you Bubba Wallace or Daniel Suarez. So
Bubba, I would have immediately. Well, you never know. Bubba Thompson.
Yeah, there you
and,
go.
some other people, but yeah, that definitely would have been more of a NASCAR lead for me.
All right, so how about this one? We will go with Lucas Black.
Isn't that an actor?
It is an actor. Can you name what movie he's in? Any of the movies he's in.
I feel like I'm picturing him in I don't know why I want to picture him in the it's a movie I love, so I should know its title, the Bill Pullman movie, but that's probably what's that movie I loved where it's really weird. Bill Pullman directed it. I'm looking up Bill Pullman now so I can pull the name of the movie I love, which by the way I highly recommend to anyone this film, even though I cannot remember its name. The movie he directed. It's a very fun, twisty film with him and Matthew McConaughey. I'm gonna pull that up while you.
I think you're thinking of the other Lucas guy, Josh Lucas. I think you're thinking of Josh Lucas.
Frailty is the movie I was thinking of. Frailty. Really highly recommend Frailty.
I think that is Josh Lucas. I'm looking through and I don't see anything for Lucas. What's his name? Lucas Black. Lucas Black was actually the quarterback in Friday Night Lights, and he was also in Jarhead, Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift, and he was also Pee Wee Reese in 42.
Oh, was he the main character in the Tokyo Drift one?
He is. Yeah, he was.
Oh,
I can't stand those movies, and for some reason I remember that one. So
if you'd asked me about like the TV show quarterbacks from Friday Night Lights, I could have gotten that one. Though I do enjoy the movie as well, but the TV.
There you go. All right, so one more. How about Jake Moberg?
Baseball player.
Yeah, shortstop out of Vista Marietta High School. Some fine tools down in kind of the Lake Elsinore area, Riverside region of California. So Jeff, you went 5 for 9. I think that's a pretty fair deal.
In baseball, it's a solid batting average, so I will take it. A little embarrassing to miss one of the baseball prospects, but as I've said, I'm still on my having a baby this year has kept me a little more surfaced, a little less beyond the third round when it's come to prep kids this year.
Fair enough. Jeff, let's do one more quick fun little deal here. I put it out on Twitter today, and it was that there has only been 4 players in Major League Baseball history with over 400 stolen bases, over 250 home runs, and a 375 on-base percentage or better. The 3 names that I put out there were Ricky Henderson.
That was the one I would have known.
Joe Morgan, Barry Bonds, and I did not disclose this player, but it's brought up that I think he's going to be on a Hall of Fame ballot here soon, and he's a very questionable. Maybe the analytics will put him in as a Hall of Famer. So 400 stolen bases, 288 home runs, a 129 weighted runs created plus, 395 on base percentage, and 59.6 WAR according to Fangraphs. Jeff, can you name what player I'm talking about?
My first guess when I hear stolen bases would have been like Tim Raines or Luke Brock, but if it's someone who's going to be in the Hall of Fame or is not yet up for it, I have to think of someone recently.
Guys that came really close were Craig Biggio and Bobby Bonds, but they didn't match the on-base percentage.
And Ichiro? What was Ichiro lacking?
Ichiro doesn't have the home runs.
Okay.
Yeah. And I don't. You kind of underestimate how many stolen bases 400 really is.
No, I mean, and especially nowadays, this isn't like the 1980s when Vince Coleman stole like 90 in a season. We just don't see kind of that red light, and catchers I feel like are more developed now. I really feel that it's harder to do just from that. So some pop, steals bases, not in the Hall of Fame.
Not a guy that you would assume has either based on his body structure.
Robbie Alomar would have been another one, but he's in the Hall of Fame. The only guy I can think of who had some pop and some speed, but I don't think he hits the on-base percentage, would have been Jimmy Rollins.
No, it's not. Think of a guy, he played for both New York teams, both LA teams. Probably wasn't really well known for playing for either of those teams, though. More of a Philly.
Beltran? Oh, no.
He was a Philly more than anything.
Philadelphia, Philly. Makes me think Shane Victorino, but that can't be it.
Left-handed bat, outfielder. He's only 44 years old, 6 foot, 220.
20. Not Abreu, is it?
It is. It's Bobby Abreu.
Yeah, I mean, he was one of those guys who so much better than you remember, and it's the craziness that he. I want to pull up his stats now. I mean, Philadelphia basically gave him to New York. Like, he was, oh, we don't want to pay this guy anymore. Here you go. And I mean, he went to New York. Let's see. Yeah, he went with Corey Lidell. And, you know, two guys on the major league roster who didn't amount to much, and two minor prospects. And he was with the Yankees for 3 years. I should have known it'd be someone who played for the Angels.
Well, I actually was pulling him up because I was doing Dodger stats. But, yeah, I was very surprised to see Bobby Abreu as one of 4 anything. Really unique. If you have the stats there, Jeff, you'll see that he was only an All-Star twice and never finished higher than 12th in MVP voting.
And that year he wasn't an All-Star.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, it's just one of those. I mean, it's you look at the numbers, and it's like, who doesn't want this? At his prime year, like 27, he hit 289, which was a bad batting average for him at the time. 36 stolen bases, 31 home runs, 48 doubles. I mean, that's the impressive thing to me. On top of that, is just like he wasn't just home runs. I mean, he was an extra base machine.
Yeah, he did what Jose Ramirez did last year. He did that every year.
I mean, how about from his most similar player by age at 30, 31, 32? Basically, from 31 to 37, his comp is Bernie Williams. Over his career, his Luis Gonzalez at number 1, Bernie Williams 2, Dwight Evans 3, Garrett Anderson 4, Torrey Hunter 5, Dave Parker 6, Chili Davis 7, Steve Finley 8, Johnny Damon 9, Vada Pinson 10. I mean, those are his 10 most common. And outside of maybe Chili Davis, I feel like if you asked anyone, oh, would you rather have Bobby Abreu or Dwight Evans? They would always take the other guy. But, I mean, the longevity, the extra bases, and he was walking over 100 times a game at peak. I mean, he was an excellent player coming off of his 2 All-Star years back-to-back were 2004 and 5, and then 2006 is when that deal with the Yankees happened. Now, I could be wrong. 2006 was still, I'm straight out of college. I don't even know what on-base percentage is at that point. So maybe it wasn't as much of a sell-off as it is in my mind. Sometimes things get set. But I just remember that as a deal where it was almost reported as, oh, the Yankees got him for nothing. And
this is kind of the most unique thing. From his first full season, this is 1, 2, 3, 4. His first 7 seasons, his low WAR was 5.2. He was a 5 to 6 win player every year his first 7 seasons.
And that's as a not good defender.
Yeah, I mean,
there's some bad years, but
his defense was okay. But yeah, I mean, this guy, if he was playing in today's game, we'd be talking about him as a possible MVP candidate.
Yeah, he'd be. I'd be curious to look up and see before Michael Brantley's injury. Like, that's always a guy I feel like I compare a lot of players to when I don't see that big plus power. But I mean, Abreu had more power than Brantley. But whenever I see a guy where I'm like tons of doubles, 20 home run pop, and he's going to get on base close to 40% of the time, that's kind of my outfield comp. But yeah, I remember that year that Brantley finished third in the MVP, and I called him Trout Light. And poor man's Trout. Like I really want to. Mike Trout is, I'm not just saying this because you write for the Angels, and I know we have a large Angels base, but like Mike Trout is someone we all need to appreciate because we're seeing a guy who, when it's all said and done, might be in the all-time outfield. Like when you're making the greatest team of all time, Mike Trout has a legitimate chance of being part of that outfield. So no one quite compares to him. I am looking forward to the Jarred Kelenic, Mike Trout comps, which are going to be coming in about at least Harold Reynolds is going to drop that because they're both about the same height.
Casey Mize is Roger Clemens.
Yeah, well, I mean, Trout is 6'2", Kelenic 6'1". They're from the cold. That's gonna be the inevitable. And I love Kelenic. He's a top 10 prospect, but I am not doing that comp. I repeat, I am not doing that comp. Do not go on and be like, oh, Jeff Ellis compared him to. I'm like, no, I'm saying someone is going to, just like people compared Garrett Whitley to Mike Trout because they're both from the New York metro area. And I was sitting there pulling my hair out being like, oh, this is awful. This is awful.
I actually have a comp for Jarred Kelenic, and you know me, I hate comps, but I have one, and I think you're going to laugh at it, and it's Jeff Conine.
I see. In my mind, Conine wasn't as good of an athlete as Kelenic.
That's true. It's true, but similar production levels for me. But Jeff, just because we got on the topic of Mike Trout and everything, I have to ask because you're closer to the East Coast. I know you're still, Midwest or Mid-East kind of, but I am personally a huge Bryce Harper advocate. That's not to say that he is better than Mike Trout or in the same level that Mike Trout is, but I believe that we're seeing history with Bryce Harper as well. Is that kind of what the take is out in your way?
I don't hear it. I mean, this is the unfortunate thing with baseball, and I don't understand it as much. It kind of hurt my heart last week when Anthony Rizzo was like, let's play less games and we'll just make less money. It's like, we don't hear the pushing. And Bryce Harper, you don't see a lot of teenagers do it, debut anymore. And, the fact that he debuted in his teens, at least any teenager, it's even less likely when they're an American teenager, just because the way the draft system's set up. What he has done is just, there's nothing to compare it against. There's no one who we've seen in recent memory. And, I am very curious. I can't, to see what's going to happen this offseason. Is he going to get $500 million? Like, I think that's possible. I think it's very possible that, A-Rod got close to $300 million, right, on his, or was it $350?
Yeah.
Like, if A-Rod got $350 like over a decade ago, then Bryce Hart. And I understand A-Rod's a shortstop and all of that. And, if we don't, if I don't want to weigh in on the whole drug thing and whatever, and we don't know who was on or who. It's pretty clear he used something, but we don't know who else was. But no matter what, he had ridiculous production for out the middle talent. But still, it's been a while. We've seen a lot of inflation. Bryce Harper isn't going to be 26 until October. If you give him a 10-year contract, you have him through 36. He's, by all accounts, a pretty clean living guy. I don't think you worry about him getting lazy. This isn't, I always remember listening to sports radio as a child and Jason Giambi talking about like, well, all I want is, give me $15 million a season and a map to the best strip clubs in the area. Like that's not Bryce Harper. And I swear to God that happened because as a kid you remember such statements. It's like this Harper's going to stay in shape. He's going to keep his nose clean. And if you give him a 10-year contract or a 15-year contract, you're paying. A 15-year one, then he's through age 41, which is ridiculous. But we saw the Tigers give Miggy Cabrera. They gave Miggy Cabrera that huge contract when he has had issues staying in shape, and he has not kept his nose clean in his time in the big leagues. I feel that Harper is he's a safe bet. I mean, I'm sure you spend more time in clubhouse than I do, but I don't hear anything negative about him. It's just occasionally it's the big knock is people sometimes don't like him almost being too cocksure. But I personally, I think that's fantastic. But yeah, I'll be very curious to see what he gets. And
yeah, I mean, any other era outside of having Mike Trout, I mean, I'd take Bryce Harper almost over everyone every single day. It's just that we do have Mike Trout, who is doing historical stuff every single time he takes the field. Jeff, we said we're going to do a short mock. Let's just do, kind of quick. Detroit Tigers. Basically, what I have is Casey Mize or a college bat that shows that it seems like Detroit wants a bat, but they just, unless Mize has something go terribly wrong, he has separated himself. He's 1-1. Is that what you have?
Yeah, I've had Mize, and then the Kalenic rumors won't go away. And I reported that back in December. I first heard about ties between that organization and Kalenic in August. So they know Kalenic well. It does feel like they want a bat. That they're looking for reasons to get a bat. If Mize has a month like McClanahan had, and only has one quality start out of his last 4, I think they go bat. I think they're looking for an excuse to go bat, but they do love SEC arms. They seem to. They took Faedo last year, even though he wasn't the big velocity guy that they've had in the past. But it's a sneaky good minors at this point, thanks to all of their trades, some astute ones last year. They've got a lot, and I think that's part of the reason why we see this. It's the Matt Manning is an interesting guy. They got Faedo. Bo Burrows is knocking on the door. I'm blanking on the main piece for Verlander, who is a really good starting pitching prospect who actually saw pitch. Yes. So they've got, most of their top prospects are pitchers. And, even someone like Fulmer is who they have multiple years of control of. So you always draft best player available. Occasionally teams don't follow that advice. And I think there is a world where they consider someone like Kalenic, especially if he's cheaper.
Yeah, same thing. And then San Francisco at 2, they would love if Mize fell to them, obviously. But we're hearing Carter Stewart, Matt Liberatore, a few names for the Giants, but they're kind of still the big question mark at 2. At 3, it sounds like Alec Baum and the Phillies is a really good deal to be made. And at 4, it sounds like Travis Swaggerty to the White Sox. Jeff, is that kind of what you have right now?
I think what we saw last year with San Francisco is they kind of switched a little and went with the upside, went for extreme upside, and with Helio Ramos, and that's worked out. So I've also heard the Giants on Madrigal, which would make sense with some of their past stuff, some like Joe Panic and the like. I think it's kind of like Liberatore, Madrigal, or Stewart would probably be my best guesses there. The Phillies, I almost feel like they have been too open in their love of Baum. When you talk with other people in their field, it's like, oh no, the Phillies are all over Baum. That's who they want. They're not even hiding it. But I feel like last year they didn't really try to hide who they liked either. So, and I think they're kind of in a situation with the Phillies where they're picking 3. It's going to be Baum, Madrigal, or Mize. One of those guys gets to them. They don't really care which one, to a degree.
Yeah, same. And then the White Sox have been very open about Swaggerty.
Yes, he's a little interesting to me just because they don't love. Last year they were avoidant of guys with high K rate, and they're a team that loves the smoke screen. There could be a surprise. I mean, Berger was a relative surprise a year ago with them. So just keep in mind if there's I don't know if India could rise that high. Bart might be in play there, who's moved his rate back a bit, and they do love that power. So they've been very open in Swaggerty, but I think it is going to be a college bat, but I could see them going off board.
Yeah, and then we've got Cincinnati, New York, San Diego, Atlanta, Oakland, Pittsburgh to round out the top 10. It's kind of just connections and who's going to fall where. We are getting information from our sources letting us know, who's going in what range. I feel like I've got a little bit better idea of what's going on in the teens than I do in the top 10, but that's if the top 10 does play out the way it is. We're still just finding out what the bonus demands are from guys, but we will have a mock out. Jeff, I know I'm breaking this news to you, but probably have a mock draft between the two of us in the next 2 to 3 weeks here. We're 6 weeks away from the draft. Probably 3 weeks prior to the draft, we will have a new mock draft with all the information that we've attained.
So I have some somewhat breaking news to release. So I made a promise right before we started the podcast that if I can get to 2,000 followers, I was currently at 950, that when I did my big board release, that I would put none of it behind a paywall. That's all 51 of my reports. I took all of them and I did a new write-up, but I also added an analysis underneath my write-up from January because I missed on some, but I have nothing to hide. So I am now up to 2,003 followers. So if this stays, all of my big board will be non-paywall today for this week. My followers, a big thank you to Mad Friars and Future Blue Jays, who both sent a lot of people my way. But since I posted that tweet, I've gained 53 new followers. So if you were looking forward to our content, it's all, my entire big board is going to be free this week for anyone who's looking forward to that.
Well, there we go. Congratulations, Mr. Jeff Ellis. Jeff, I think we're closing shop. Does that sound accurate? Is that I think we're closing time. I hear Tennyson in the back, so I'm not sure.
Yeah, she's crying. Woke up from her nap. I think she's probably feeding with mom, and then I'll be on Tennyson duty. So I make it sound bad. It's fun. It's good to see the little one when I get back from work. She's smiling. She likes watching sports with daddy because mom doesn't let her watch any screens. So it's like and there's balls moving, and that's all that she really cares about. So I'm already starting to indoctrinate her into the love of baseball. So it has begun.
Perfect. And I wish my wife was as big a baseball fan as Tennyson. She's going to go to a hockey game with me tonight, playoff hockey game.
Nice.
She says I'm obsessed with hockey, so she doesn't like when I go. So I decided I'm just going to take her with me this time. Jeff, why don't you do your plugs? Obviously, you have your top 51 coming out. You just surpassed 2,000 followers on Twitter. Why don't you give some plugs out, and then we'll close.
Yeah, I had a full count trends come out this week. I broke the rules of my full count trends because last week when I was getting it up, I didn't look at the Mid-American Conference for stats. And I missed out that 2 weeks ago, Ross Hathey had a 6 home run weekend. So I thought that he deserved a day in the sun with that. You don't see that often. So he technically would have been last week's, but I threw him into this week's. Talked about Magical and his performance. Steele Walker had another one where, I don't know where to put Steele because I think he's going to be a good guy you can count on. But, it's how much more beyond that. And I talked about the Tim Cate issue in that. And I can't remember who my other struggle was. But, the full count trend is up. I'm going to release the big board in parts since it's all going to be free. I'll probably still release a list format if you just want to see that. But I'll do 17 little profiles a day, free to all since I crossed 2,000. So, yeah, if you're checking by Twitter at JeffMLBDraft, those whenever I post, I immediately go on Twitter and retweet those out. So, yeah, hop in, see what you want. Feel free to comment, send information. I try to respond to everyone, but I'm, it's fun. It's getting into it, and it's a great time to follow for info just because of the depth and how much there is to find out.
Absolutely, Jeff. Thank you for having us on. My name is Taylor Blake Ward at Taylor Blake Ward on Twitter. Like I said, we will have a mock draft coming your way soon. Just found out I have a snake in my chassis of my car. Found that out last night, and found out there's still some bits of it. So I've got to go get that. Hope you guys have a wonderful time. This is the Who's on First Baseball Podcast. Want to send a shout out. Rest in peace, Tim Bergling, a.k.a. Avicii, also Vern Troyer. Very sad losses that we're all feeling. So we're going to play some Avicii on your way out. You guys have a wonderful time wherever you may be. Once again, for Scouting Baseball and the Who's on First podcast, Jeff Ellis and Taylor Blake Ward. Have a good one, guys.